Is it on me? I'm sorry, I can't hear. My name is Victor and I'm an alcoholic. Grateful to be here today. Thank you for inviting me to come and tell my story. My sobriety date is October 20th, 1997. And for that, I'm truly grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous and to y'all. You know, without y'all, I wouldn't be here. And without the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, like I wouldn't be here. My story is the same as everybody. The quick version is I started drinking. I couldn't stop. I ruined people's lives and I came to AA and thank God for AA. The long version is I'm originally from the beautiful state of Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, way South Texas. And growing up, was a normal dysfunctional family. It was just normal. I'm the oldest of five. And like I said, growing up, always it was just normal dysfunctional family. My my uh, my dad's was always my hero. Always wanted to be like my dad. He was something. I'm from a little small town, so like everybody knew us and everybody knew my dad. So growing up, I always wanted to be like my dad. And I don't know if y'all can hear this or you can tell, but I'm kind of Mexican. So growing up, we always had people over at the house every weekend, man. And my dad would cook, in the fire pit with my uncles and all of us would be running around in the yard. And I remember seeing my dad in the corner with my uncles in his muscle shirt and drinking beer. And I'm thinking like, that's what I want to be like a man's man, just like my dad. And it came to the point that my dad started, drinking more and doing other things and growing, getting a little bit older, it came a point that I didn't want to be like my dad. The way he was behaving and the things that he was doing, and I could see how it affected my mom, my sisters, and me, and seeing all that, seeing the financial situation that we were in and growing up and all that. I didn't want to be like my dad, and my mom used to always worry, she would always pull me to the side and say, "Hey, Victor, man, they call me Junior, hey, Junior, you know, um, I got enough problems with your dad. Please act right." And starting high school, like she was very worried for me. I remember sitting down and telling her, I said, "Mom, you don't have anything to worry about. I see this. I know how it feels. Don't worry about me. I'm not, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay." But I always felt like something was off. There's a beautiful story in that beautiful book about a lady who says she feels she was an alcoholic way before she took that first drink. And I can relate to that. The way I thought, the way I felt, the way I thought, the way I felt, I could tell something was different. I used to get mad at my brother and I hold on for it for months, years. And I would see how they would get mad at each other. And 5 minutes later, they're okay. They talk about it. They let it go. I couldn't do that, and I always felt that something was off. And anyway, like I said, I'm from the beautiful state of Texas, and they take football pretty serious over there, and growing up, I was like in this little high school football team, and it's a small school, it's 3A school, and I'm like third or fourth string, I'm not that good, and I'm passing out water and everything. And this particular game, it's parents' night, and we're losing like 100-0 or something like that, and they're playing football, and all the parents are out there, and they done scored on us again, and the coach is like, "Hey, Victor, why don't you go on in there?" And I'm like, "You sure, coach?" He goes, "Man, go on in there, man." So I had to find a helmet because I wasn't used to playing, so I ended up finding a little helmet and going out there, and they kick the ball, boom, and I see it in the air, and next thing I know, I catch it, boom, and then I start running, and I keep running, and I'm still running, and by the time I know it, I'm in the freaking end zone, man, and everybody's going crazy. I don't know if you ever seen that movie Rudy, where they pick them up and carry them. Well, that didn't happen to me, but in my mind it did. In my mind it did, So we still lost like 2006 or something like that, but it was a great time. And they kept on talking about the story. Like I said, I'm from Texas. We don't lie. We just kind of exaggerate. So every time they told the story, they kept on adding stuff to it. Like, "Man, Victor, there was 20 guys chasing you and this, and that." And I love hearing the story. So the part of Texas that I'm from is like from here to the parking lot is Mexico. So what a lot of these kids used to do is after the game, they used to just walk over to Mexico, walk into a bar, play pool, drink a couple of beers, and have fun, you know. And they invited me, and I'm like, no, man, like I don't drink. Like I don't do that. But they kept on telling that story and asking me to go. So finally I said, look, I'll go. So I'm walking over to Mexico. We get to this bar and there's a gentleman at the door and it's $5 covers, free drinks all night. And I'm walking in and the guy gives me a glass and he says, here's your glass. Where's your $5? Here's your glass. Don't lose it. Because if you lose it, you got to pay another $5. I said, amigo, I don't drink. He goes, I don't care. Don't lose the glass or it's another $5. I said, okay. So I'll walk in there and I'm sitting down with my friends and everybody's telling the story. And my friend's like, hey, man, you want me to get you something to drink? And I'm like, man, like, I don't drink. Like I can't. I don't drink, man. And then this beautiful girl showed up. Like beautiful, beautiful girl showed up. And she's like, hey, do you drink? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. You know, yeah, I drink. I wish I had a drink right now. And she's like, okay. And she went and got me a drink and she came back and with the glass and it was a tequila sunrise. And the reason I remember is because an old country song, the Eagles, you know, sing a song called Tequila Sunrise. And long story short, this is the best way that I can explain it. It seems that before I took that drink on that day, all my life, all of it, I was walking around like this. And I thought this was normal. And when I took that first drink, it was like, oh, and I loved it. Loved it. Now, I didn't start drinking every day and this and that. I'm not that type of alcoholic. But that was the only thing that was on my mind. Every time we got out, every time we did something, like drinking was the most important thing in my life. I don't know how I ended up going through school, you know, and for me to tell you that I hated alcohol right off the bat, like, no, like I liked it. I loved it. It helped me. It helped me be, I danced, I can tell jokes. I still can't fight, but I think I can at least, you know. So, you know, I'm going through this and just getting into normal high school problems. At least in my mind, they're normal high school situations where I get caught drinking or police get called once in a while. Nothing serious, just adolescent, teenage things. And that's what I tell my mom. I said, man, you know, I'm not like my dad. You know, I got plans, you know. And long story short, I ended up, you know, going through high school. And in my senior year, I'm in the cafeteria talking to my friend and we're talking. And then this beautiful girl showed up. Beautiful, man. And we started talking. And next thing I know, she put a paper in front of me and I signed it. And then I signed up to the Army for 2 years, right? So I signed up for the Army and after graduation, you know, I went, they were going to send me to Fort Leonard Wood here in Missouri, you know, Fort Leonard Wood, Arkansas. That's where I was, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, that's where I was going to be stationed at. And before I went, you know, during this time, I was drinking and I was smoking that little grass and all that stuff. And my friend is like, hey, you know what? You know, once you cross state lines, that stuff costs a little bit more. And I'm like, you really? He goes, yeah, man, you know, you need to take some with you. So you don't have to pay money up there. And I said, you know, that sounds like a great plan. So I ended up grabbing some, I put it in a Dorito bag, put the Doritos on top, got on that bus and made it all the way to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And when I got there, you know, I realized that the Army was just not for me, man. I respect the military. I feel like what they've done is beautiful. And there's a lot of pride and patriotism in that. But when that gentleman got on that bus and told us that we had 10 seconds to get off and 5 had already passed by and he was screaming and all that, like I knew it wasn't for me. And long story short, a few days later, they ended up catching me with that stuff and they wanted to send me to Fort Leavenworth, which is a lot different than Fort Leonard Wood. So I'm sitting there and I've always considered myself a gangster, you know, so I do what all gangsters do. I lie, you know, and I tell them, you know, my dad's an alcoholic and I've got all these things and I tell them all these stories and somehow they believed it, right? And they ended up giving me a general discharge. On the day that I was packed up my stuff, and the day that I packed up my stuff and was walking out, I was they were doing the inventory of my stuff, the cabs waiting for me to take me to the bus station, and sergeant's trucks going over my stuff. And there's a TV in the corner and there's a news flash, and Iraq is invading Kuwait. And for a brief moment, I felt that once again, I had let go of an opportunity where I could have done something that was good, like stand up for my country, something to be a part of something good. And once, because it had happened before, whether it was sports, academics, friendships, relationships, something, it always get to the side and I wouldn't see it through. Something because of and I could never connect it to the drinking, never. It was always bad luck or so be it or whatever. And once again, I felt that I had lost an opportunity to be a part of something great, but the cab driver hit the horn. I got in the tub. By the time I know it, I'm at the house, And like I said, I'm a gangster. So when I get back to my hometown, I move in with my girlfriend because her dad's paying all the bills, it's the kind of gangster I am. And so I'm staying with this lady, her dad's paying all the bills and he ends up giving me a job. And my drink is getting worse. I start doing things that I've never thought I've done, like start hiding stuff and drinking and lying about it, and it just keeps on getting worse and worse. But I think that I can still kind of control it, which is, as you know, we can't. So I'm sitting there and we're watching TV. Me and this girl that I've known since 6th grade. I met this lady when we were in 6th grade, and we stayed together all the way up until well, you'll hear it. So I'm sitting there in this apartment and I'm sitting in the couch and I'm hugging her and we're watching TV, and it's an old show. I think it's either Melrose Place or 90210, one of those old shows, and we're watching this show and the phone rings and I pick it up and it's this guy that I don't even like. And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just watching TV." He goes, "Hey, we're fixing to go do some armed robberies. You want to go with us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" And I leave that beautiful lady to go do some armed robberies with this guy that I don't even like. So I get in the car and we're broke. So it's 3 of us and there's only 1 gun. So I want to use the gun in the first one, but it's not my gun. I want to use the gun in the second one, but they were cousins, and you know what they say about blood and water and all that. So I got to use the gun in the third. And to tell, and what ended up happening, like that was the only gas station that had a camera on it. So that next day I'm on TV and everybody's looking for me. So I do what all gangsters do. I run. At this point, my dad's living in North Carolina. He used to work on the cotton gins back then, during the off season, he would fix them up. And then during the season, he would run them and they would run cotton. At this time, it was during the off season. So I went up there to go visit him. And after 2 or 3 months of being there with him, I ended up telling him, I said, "Dad, I'm in trouble." He's like, "What happened, mijo?" I said, "Man, I did some armed robberies and they're looking for me." He said, "Man, you only got 2 choices," he said. He said, "1, you can turn yourself in, or 2, you can go to Mexico and never come back." And I'm like, "Dad, like, I'm not that type of Mexican, man. Like, I can't make it in Mexico. Like, I love the United States. This is where I'm from." So I end up going back to the little town that I'm from, and I turn myself in. When I get in there, the district attorney tells my attorney, if he pleads guilty, I'll give him 15 years. Think about it. So I told my mom, I said, "Well, let me go think about it." And I don't know if you've ever been to county jail. If you haven't, don't go. It's not as cool as they make it seem on TV, but I'm in this county jail and everybody's giving me these legal advice. And some people are telling me not to take the deal, all this stuff. So I call my mom. I said, "Mom, like, what do I do, man?" She said, "Mijo, they got you on a camera. with the gun on your hand, take the 15, we'll just pray that everything turns out okay. So they called the DA the next week. I'm going to court to sign for this. So when I woke up that morning, and I was going to court, my plan was to sign for 15 years. So I get to the court, and it's the state of Texas versus Victor Velasquez Jr. And the judge is asking the DA, like, what are you offering him? He says, 15 years, Your Honor. He'll be out in 5. He'll be okay. And like I told you, I'm a gangster. So my mom's behind me, my little sisters, my brother, they're all behind me, and they're crying. My mom is crying. And I told you I'm a gangster. So you know what I'm doing. I'm crying, And the judge looks at me and he says, how old are you, young man? I said, I'm 18, sir. He said, you know what? We got this program called boot camp that's starting off. He goes, I'm going to send you there for 90 days. And then that's all I heard. When I woke up that morning, I was planning to sign for 15 years. And this beautiful man out of nowhere decided to give me 90 days. And I don't know how math is where you're at, but math in Texas and Arkansas, where I'm at right now, 90 days is a lot less than 15 years. And I should have run up there and kissed that man's feet and thanked them. But the only thing I could think about was, I'm going to be gone all summer. That's how selfish I am, man. Like, all I think about is me. Never worried about what the shame that I'm putting my family, the financial stress that I'm putting on them, all the embarrassment for my brothers and sisters at school because I'm coming out. Never crossed my mind. My only thing I was worried about is I'm going to be gone all summer. So I go to this boot camp, and it's crazy that I end up doing the prison boot camp and I didn't do the military boot camp. So I'm in this boot camp marching, and they're giving us substance abuse classes. And there's this beautiful man who used to play for the most beautiful team in the world, the Dallas Cowboys, of course, Hollywood Henderson, man. And he's got this video where he's telling people about abstinence and you got to stop doing all that stuff. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. If you keep on doing what you're doing, you're going to keep on getting what you're getting. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. And my mom and that girl came to visit me, and I'm sitting there in this visitation. They're both across the table from me. And I'm telling my mom, and I promise you, I meant it. I'm saying, Mom, when I get out, I just want to be the son that you deserve. I know who my friends are because nobody's written me. Nobody stopped to the house to see if you need the yard mowed, or if you need some grocery money. Nobody has written me a letter. Like, I know who my friends are. I don't care about me. All I want to do is be out there, and I'm going to do good. And I promise you, I meant it. I meant it. If I would have taken the lie detector test, I would have passed. I cashed a chain. I'm back in front of the judge. And he's telling me, like, Velasquez, you did great. You helped people with their GED. You didn't get any disciplinaries. You passed all your substance abuse classes. He says, you did great. He goes, all you got to do is don't do that stuff anymore. And I thought, I can do that. I can do that. He goes, just stay away from those friends. Don't start drinking. And in my mind, I'm like, I can do that. I didn't know. I promise you, I didn't know I couldn't do that. I thought I could, but 25 days later, I'm right back at it. Right back at it. When I started working these steps, I learned about having what powerlessness meant and what having a choice meant. And for those first 24 days, I could come to a dead intersection and feel like, if I go this way, I'm going to go get drunk. And if I go this way, I'm going to stay out of trouble. And for 22 days straight, I can go this way and stay out of trouble. But by the time I know it, I'm over here already drunk. It's cunning, it's baffling, it's powerful. And little by little, my life got a little bit more complicated. I kept on getting in trouble with the probation officer, in trouble with my job. The only reason I didn't get fired is because I was working for my girlfriend's dad. My mom done disowned me and brought me back and disowned me. I'm stealing from them. I'm just a mess. And I still, and this is gonna sound so crazy. Well, not to y'all, but to a normal person, this sounds so crazy because I still couldn't connect the alcohol to the way my life was. You know, I don't I don't know, back then not everybody had a cell phone, so they used to have these machines that if I wasn't home, you could leave a message. So I took a lunch and I'm at this apartment with my girlfriend, and there's the machine is blinking, and I pick it up to hear the message, and it's my probation officer, and he says, as soon as you get this message, give me a call. So I call him, and he says, what are you doing right now? I said, I'm on the phone with you. He said, I need you in my office as soon as possible. And I said, man, I got to go back to work. He goes, do you want to go to prison? I said, no. He goes, you better be in my office. So I drove up there to his office. And as soon as I'm walking up the stairs, it's a glass building, his glass office. And I see my mom and my girlfriend, and they're just telling it on me. How I hurt them verbally, not physically, but verbally, which is worse most of the times. How I make them feel, how I steal from them, how I'm drunk, how I'm broke, or I always have money, or how what kind of tornado I am. And the probation officer looks at me, he goes, I need you to go tomorrow to this treatment center. You're gonna talk to this gentleman, and they're probably gonna keep you there for 30 days. And I'm like, what about my job? He goes, do you want to go to prison? And I'm like, well, no. When I walked out that office, my mom is about this short, you know. And when I walked out that office, the best way that I can say this, because if not, these things will start leaking, is I basically told her that it's her fault that I'm going to prison. That if she just minded her own business, I would be okay. Through this beautiful program, when I made amends to that lady, she said she'd rather I would have hit her than said the things that I said, because you know how we are. So anyway, I show up the next morning, I'm talking to this guy, and he's like, what's the problem? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, your girlfriend's saying all these things. And I'm like, I'm fixing to leave her. So she's lying on me. He said, what about your mom? I said, my mom wants me to get married. I don't want to get married. I'm not even 21 yet. No, like, no. That's why they're mad at me. And he goes, do you have a job? And I'm like, yes, sir. He goes, how about your community service? I said, it's done. Fines paid for. He said, you know what? I don't know what the problem is. He said, why don't you go home, and I'm going to call your probation officer, and we're going to make sure everything's okay. So when I get back to that apartment, that machine is blinking. So I call him again, and he's like, I don't know what you said, but if you get in trouble one more time, I'm going to send you to prison. I said, okay. I'm an Irish Mexican. I was born in March 17. I'm a St. Patrick's baby. So on March 17 of that year, I had just turned 21. Just turned 21. So I was legal to drink beer. And I don't know how probation is, and I don't want to find out, or parole is right now. But back then in Texas, they didn't care about you drinking. They were more concerned about the drugs. So I had just turned 21. I go to this park, and back then, for some reason, the cool thing to do was get in your car, turn your radio up, go to the park, and go in circles, and then park, and that we're cruising, and that's what we were doing. So I'm sitting there, and I'm drinking, and my friends show up and offer me drugs, and I'm like, oh no, I say no. I listen to Nancy Reagan, like I say no. I'm not a drug addict. I just drink beer. So that was on a Sunday, on April 18th in 93. It was on a Sunday, and so we're drinking beer, and I'm drinking beer, and my girlfriend's cell phone rings, and it was about this big. So I pick it up, and I'm like, hello, and she's like, mijo, you need to come home, because you know how my dad is when you show up late and drunk or hangover. I said, okay. I don't have DUIs. Like, I haven't been to a treatment center yet. I don't have a DUI or nothing. I think I might have one public intoxication during my teenage years, but I don't even know if it's in my record. So long story short, I get in my truck and I don't make it home. I killed 2 people driving drunk. Yeah. I killed a 21-year-old man and an 11-month-old baby. Yeah. And I wish I could tell you that ever since then, I haven't had a drink. When they say this thing is cunning and baffling and powerful, that's what they mean. I can't stop. I tried to stop. I wanted to stop. I prayed to stop. I couldn't stop. I ended up, the DA shows up to the county jail and he's like, I'm gonna give you 10 years for all of this if you sign this week. And I'm like, where do I sign? You know, they wanted me out of the county so quick that I was in prison like in 2 months. I committed that crime. They said I pled guilty in a couple of 3 weeks, and I was already in prison in a month and a half. And when I got to prison, you know, like I said, I wish I could tell you I stopped, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. You know, and I would do what everybody in prison does. You know, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd shave, put my ID, go to the door, go to work, come back home, go outside, play some handball, talk to my homeboys. And but every night in that cell, in that bunk, and I would be in my bunk, and I would always ask myself, like why can't you stop? You know, why can't I stop? I wanted to stop. And even after all the horrible things I did, I still couldn't stop. The only reason I didn't commit suicide is because I'm a coward. Well, I was a coward. That's the only reason I didn't commit suicide. During this time, I would get brief moments of clarity, and I started going to church, got baptized like 20 times probably. And I'm not saying church doesn't work. I'm saying at that point, church didn't work for me. I became a Muslim. I was so desperate, you know. I had a new cellie who showed up, and I saw how he became a Muslim, and 6 months later, he's enrolled in college and this and that. I'm like, maybe I need to be a Muslim. And I bought the little hat, and I bought the rug. I should have read the book first because they don't eat pork. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. You know, I love pork, you know. And I kept on doing this, like I said, and I learned how to make hooch in prison. If you've ever been to prison, don't go. If you've never been, don't go. But if you go, you'll find out there's everything you want in there. So I have about 4 years in that prison, 4.5 years, and they hired a new substance abuse counselor. And his name is Sani Casares, and he was the new substance abuse counselor there. But what ended up happening is this beautiful man was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous in good standing. And what this beautiful man did, and no, I want to say this before I forget, if you take meetings to corrections, treatment centers, all those places, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know it can be hard sometimes, and we're hard-headed, we're disrespectful in that prison. But for the people who take these beautiful meetings in there, thank you, because if it wasn't for somebody like you making the time and the effort to go to those places, somebody like me wouldn't be here at all. So if you're involved, especially in corrections, thank you. I love you, and may God bless you for all the hard work that you do and everything that you do for that. Because if it wasn't for y'all, people like me wouldn't be here. So this beautiful man after work would bring meetings into the prison, and he would get other members in good standing to go up there once a week and share their stories and tell stories and their experience and their strength and their hope, and share the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what he ended up doing, he started sponsoring people there. And then the people that he sponsored started sponsoring people in prison. And by the time you know it, like it's growing. And when God's involved, when God's involved, how quick this thing grows. So I'm working at the kitchen and this gentleman says, man, they got these AA meetings going on and man, you need to go. And I'm like, man, I don't want to go to no, I'm not an alcoholic, man. Still, I'm not an alcoholic, bad luck, whatever. I'm not an alcoholic. He's like, man, they bring cookies sometimes. And I'm like, well, yeah, he says, they bring cookies. As a matter of fact, they're having a speaker this week. You need to sign up. They're going to bring cookies and this, and that. And I'm like, yeah, I love free cookies, getting out of my cell and seeing other people. So I ended up going to this meeting, and like every cool prisoner, I sat way in the back, and I'm still being disrespectful. I'm talking to my friends and telling them how this, and that. And this beautiful other gentleman is telling his story. And then he hit on the doctor's opinion. And then he was explaining about the obsession and the allergy and all that stuff. And then, well, once I put it in my body, I can't stop. And if I don't have it in my body, that's all I'm thinking about. And for the first time in my life, I realized I had the answer to the question that was driving me crazy. Why can't I stop? After that meeting, I went to Sonny and I asked him to be my sponsor, and he agreed. And he told me, he said, Victor, man, what are you willing to do for this? And I gave the typical answer. I'll do anything. He's like, mijo, I just need you to be honest. I just need you to be willing. I need you to have an open mind. And I need you to remember that if you want a life like you've never had before, you need to do things you've never done before. And this program's going to teach you the principles to do that. I didn't believe him, to be honest. I just wanted to stop drinking. So we started working these beautiful steps, and on step one, I'm not going to go over the steps, but on step one, it was very important to me because I always felt I had a choice. And it was pointed out to me that when it came to alcohol, I have zero choice. Once I put it in my body, I have zero choice, zero. I have sponsored people in this program called Drug Court, where they get in trouble with the law. They give them a year of drug court, or if they don't finish it, they end up doing 10, 20 years. If it was a choice, everybody would choose the 90 days, the 1 year. You know how many people end up doing the 20, 30? It's not a choice. We can't stop. So I'm going through this program. We got to the third step and we're doing the third step. And that was the first time in my life ever that I got on my knees in a prison, holding hands with this man, saying the third step prayer. And when I got up, he's like, you know what the third step prayer means? And I said, yeah. He goes, Victor, what this means is when you turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand them, your life is none of your business. None. It's none of your business who you marry. It's none of a business where you work. Your life is not, you turned your will and your life over to the care of this God. Now you just got to meet him and get a relationship with him. But your life is none of your business. And that stuck with me, because what I was taught later was that my job is to prepare myself to be a maximum service to everybody, especially the people that I don't like or that I think I don't like, because anyway. So we're going through these beautiful steps. I'm in prison, and the Dallas Cowboys are playing on TV. Those Dallas Cowboys got me in so many trouble, man. And they're losing like 20-0 or something like that. And there's this guy walking around running his mouth about my favorite team is whoever beats the Cowboys and this and that. And I'm not perfect. I'm still not perfect. You can ask my beautiful wife. I'm not perfect at all. So I tell him, why don't you bet some money on it? We ended up betting like $10 or something, and I know we were gonna lose. So the game's getting ready to be over. So I go to my cell, I take my muscle shirt off, put my boots on, put the baby powder on. I go down to the rec room, and he's like, hey, Victor, where's my money? I said, amigo, you're not getting paid. Now what? I'm not a fighter. I'm more of a talker. And the reason I was feeling so brave because I realized he had just made parole and he wasn't going to fight. So it gave me more confidence. So I ended up saying some things. I was, all this and all that. And I left and I didn't pay him. And for some reason, when I'm walking back to my cell, like it's bothering me. And like I said, I'm not a bad guy or anything, but I had done worse things than that. And that prison never bothered me. Never bothered me. Because I'm like, we're in prison, you know the rules. Never bothered me. And for some reason, it was bothering me. And I go to Sonny, my sponsor, and I'm like, hey, Sonny, man, like, because he had told me, all I want you to do is to be honest with me. You know, in that beautiful book, it tells that there is a price to pay for this life, and it's pain, because it's painful for me to kill everything I think I know about myself and everything I think I know about God. It's very painful. And it says, if you want to have a good life, you should be honest with at least one person. And he told me that, and he's like, just be honest with me. So I went up there and I saw him and I said, hey, Sonny, man, this is what happened, man. And he said, you know what, Victor, you're going to have to pay that, man. I said, Sonny, I can't. I said, I'm in prison, man. I can't. I mean, like, I can't. You know, he's like, well, if you want a life like you never had before, you need to do things you never done before. And I said, Sonny, I can't, man. I can't. Through this much open-mindedness and this much willingness, I had already started a prayer life. I had already started a relationship with this God. And the way Sonny explained this relationship to me, he says, Victor, a relationship with God is like a relationship with anybody else. I don't know any of y'all. You might not even like me because I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. 5 Super Bowls. I'm just kidding. But, you might not even like me. But if we talk every day for 5 minutes, and those 5 minutes grow to 10 minutes, we can become friends. And if those 10 minutes grow and we do stuff together, we can even become best friends. And at that point, through good sponsorship, through with them, and when it comes to sponsorship, I love what that book says. It's a man or a woman armed with facts about themselves. Not about me, facts about themselves. When a man is armed with facts, that's the best way. So long as I got on my knees and I pray to God and I ask him to give me the courage to do the things because I don't have any courage to do the things that I'm supposed to do. And next thing I know, I'm loading up a bag with food and money. And I go and I pay them double, because in prison, at least in Texas, if you don't pay on time, I don't care who you are, what gang you're with, you're going to pay double, man. So I went down there and I got double the money, $20 in a bag. I went down to the day room and I told them, like, here's your money. We didn't become best friends. I'm not writing him right now. I don't even know what happened to him, but I know what happened to me. When I'm walking back that cell, I'm free. Free. And it never happened before. I better get out of prison because I'm running out of time. Sorry about that. So I'm already, next thing I know, when the state of Texas says 10 years, guess what? They mean 10 years. So I got locked up in 93. 2003, the beautiful state of Texas gave me $200 and told me to go home. And my brother picked me up and we went to go visit my grandma because, she was getting older in age and I wanted to see her. That was my only grandma at that time. So I go back to there, and as I'm walking to go see my grandma, I see my dad. And my dad's my hero. He was my hero. And I walk up to him and he's like, you got any money? I said, Dad, I just got out of prison. He goes, man, you got any money? I said, they gave me $200. I ended up buying, I said, I got about 140. He goes, let me hold 60. I'm like, Dad, like that's all I got. Like, I don't even know where I'm sleeping tonight. Because, number, you're going to sleep here with your grandma. Don't worry about it. Let me hold 60. I ended up not giving it to him because I didn't have any money. He ended up telling me how he felt about myself. And like a little boy, all these things are going. And next thing I know, my mom calls me. And she's like, Mijo, why don't you come to Arkansas and stay with me. You've been gone for 10 years. Why don't you come to Arkansas and stay with me? And then after that, stay here and then go do whatever you want. And I'm like, Arkansas? I said, what part of Texas is that? I didn't know I didn't know about Arkansas, So like all gangsters, I ended up moving in with my mom, at 31 years old. I'm moving with my mom and after a week, I ended up calling Sonny and I said, hey, Sonny, I've been out for 2 weeks, I don't know what I'm doing. How are we going to do this sponsorship? And I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying he's wrong, but this is the only way. But Sonny stands on sponsorship. He's like, Victor, I can't sponsor you like this. He goes, you need to go to a meeting, go to several meetings, pick a sponsor that you can see, that you can see that they're involved and how they do all that. And then more importantly, that they can see you, that they can see what you're doing and how you're sharing meetings and being a part of that. Get a sponsor, and I ended up going to my first meeting. And I remember going to my first meeting and I'm walking to this meeting and I don't know anybody. I'm in another state. I don't know anybody. And I see out there, back then you used to be able to smoke I feel old now. Back then you used to be able to smoke in a meeting, man. And everybody's out there smoking and drinking coffee. And I'm walking there and my mind's telling me, just come back tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Come back tomorrow. And as soon as I'm fixing to walk away, this beautiful man's like, hey, are you a friend of Bill W? And I'm like, yes. Like that man saved my life. He's like, come on in, man. We're having a meeting. Why don't you make the coffee and help with the chairs and we'll be ready. And I go to that meeting 3 times a week still today. I met my second sponsor there. I've only had 2 sponsors, Sonny and Don. Don Peters is my sponsor today. And I met him. I don't like him. I didn't like him. I didn't like him when I met him. He's not Mexican. He's never been to prison. And I say all that to say he didn't have to do all that to be my sponsor. He didn't have to do all that. But one thing I know, I heard his story once and what he does, and he's still my sponsor, man. I'm sorry, I got 8 minutes. I'm gonna hurry up, I promise. So during this time, I ended up going to this compound. I was painting, and I'm telling you, I'm not that type of Mexican. I was sitting in a meeting and there's a member there who's got a painting company and he's like, hey, you want a job? And I'm like, I guess I need a job. I've been out of prison for 3 months. I might as well get a job. He goes, well, I got a painting company. And I'm like, but I call my sponsor and he's like, man, we suit up, we show up, go to work. You need a job. You're 31 years old, living with your mom. So I ended up going to work at this place. And during this time, I'm hanging out with people in the meeting, and I was younger back then. So all the people now I'm one of the old guys, but they were all old. And they would go to these Brahms ice cream after the meeting, or they would meet before the meeting, go to this restaurant and then go to and I was starting to do all that. And then I'm like, man, I was tired of it. I was tired of it. And they were having this camp out. And they invited me. There was a big camp out. I'm like, I ain't going to no camp out with these old people and do this and that. And next thing I know, what do? I go to this camp out, I go to the camp out and I'm talking to a friend of mine. His wife works at a title company, when you buy a house and all that. She's like, hey, do you speak Spanish? And I'm like, yeah, for some reason it's easy for me. She's like, well, we're looking for a bilingual. And I said, man, I just got out of prison. I just spent 10 years in prison. She goes, just go talk to the owner, let them know what's the worst thing they can do, tell you no. So I go to this interview and the lady just told me, she's like, if you steal from me, you just go back to prison and I hire somebody else. She's like, but if you learn this, you can make a career out of this. So I started working at that. And that's a real stressful job, real estate agents, loan officers, title companies. It's always been a real stressful job. During this time, I met this beautiful lady, for some reason said yes to going out on a date with me. 2 months later, she moved in and everybody told us how it isn't going to work, but we're still happily married right now. And so during this time, she ended up getting pregnant and we have a little girl named Charlotte. you know, so I come home one night and it's been a stressful day. And my wife is white, you know, and that's not bad. I say that because I get home and I'm like, hey, baby, what's for dinner? And granted, I'm the favorite from my mom. So I always get fresh tortillas, you know, all that stuff, right? All that stuff. So that's what I was used to. So I'm telling my wife, because we were married, I said, well, what's for dinner? She's like, fish sticks. I'm like, fish sticks? She goes, yeah, fish sticks, macaroni and cheese. I'm like, fish sticks? Fish sticks. You know, and I'm going off and I said some things, you know, because I'm not perfect and she ain't perfect either. So she said some things back and I'm running hot and I'm mad and I'm angry. I walk into the living room. I see my little girl crawling, my little Charlotte. I pick her up and I put her little bottom in my hands and she's playing with my ears, right? And I look in her eyes and she's got these great, beautiful eyes and it hits me. She's 11 months old. And for the first time in my life, I realized what I took from somebody. I realized the damage that I actually realized the damage that I done. You see, when it comes to making amends, I was taught that it's not the money. It's not the $20 that I stole from you. It's how me stealing those $20 made you feel. It's how you feel you can't trust your friends, how you feel you got to hide your purse in your own home. It's not the $20. It's realizing the pain that I caused. And when I realize that and I go make amends, it's hard for me not to do it again. So when I realized she was 11 months old, like this thing lost it. Next thing I know, all this thing is leaking. I call my sponsor. I go into the kitchen, I hug my wife. I eat like 7 servings of those fish sticks and macaroni and cheese, you know, and I call my sponsor and he's like, now you're ready to make amends. You know, when I make amends, it's not for me. It's not so I feel better. It's not to check, at least for me, because sometimes those people aren't ready for the amends. But when it's God's time, everything ends up perfect, just the way it's supposed to be. We ended up having another boy, my little boy, Ruben, and he is beautiful. I'm glad I had a little girl first, kind of softened me up. But long story, we have a little boy, and my third one, we got 3. I should have bought a TV, but anyway, we got 3. And my third one, you know, my wife wanted to have him at a birth center. So we go to this birth center because she's feeling contractions, and they're like, no, come back in about 5 hours, you know. So I get home and the baby doesn't listen, because next thing I know, my wife is screaming that the baby is coming. So I will look in the hallway and she's on all fours telling me the baby's coming. And I'm like, baby, I can pick you up. I can put you in the car. Let's go. She goes, no, the baby's coming. So I put my hand in between her legs and I said, baby, I don't feel anything. We can make it. She goes, nope, it's coming. So I call 911 and I call them and they're telling me, well, you know, what's your name, the address. And I'm like, man, my wife is having a baby. So next thing I know, I see the head come out, the crown. And I'm like, hold on. And I put my hand out and the baby landed there. Boom. And I delivered my own baby, right? So the lady gets back on the phone. I tell her the paramedics show up and everybody's like happy. They load up my wife. They take her to the hospital. I stayed back with my kids. I ended up driving to the hospital. When I walk, I joke once in a while. So I go in there and I'm like, I know somebody owes me some money because I delivered that baby. You know, I got good insurance, you know, I didn't get nothing. You know, but we ended up finding out that day that my little boy's got Down syndrome, man. And for God to choose somebody like us to take care of a baby with Down syndrome. Like I'm a convict, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a piece of shit. You know, I was telling my story in Texas one day, and you know, when you tell your story, sometimes after the podium, they'll go up there and thank you. And there was this beautiful lady who, you know, she grabbed my hands and she didn't mean this in a bad way at all. I want to make that, she didn't mean this disrespectful, but she held my hands and she's like, how can you live with yourself? I can't. Left to my own devices, there's nothing I can do for me to wake up free, with joy, with freedom, with happiness, with the capability to love and to accept love on my own devices. My life is none of my business. None. The God that I serve is when I wake up in the morning, that I'm all he thinks about. All his power, all his love is dedicated to me. And you know what the beautiful thing is? He feels the same way about you. At least that's the God that I serve. So everything that I have today is to the beautiful program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Every single thing that I have today. The relationship that I have today, the wife, the job, we ended up opening up our own title company. I had to go through a bunch of loops and stuff because I'm a felon and the title company is almost like a bank. So we ended up opening up a little title company, and the bills are getting paid. And if you hear this from speakers all the time, if I would have made a list of the stuff that I wanted, I would have shortchanged myself. You know, my mom, I'm going to say this and I'll shut up because I know it's already 8 and I'm so sorry. But I wanted to say this. My mom, in Mexico, Mother's Day is May 10th. It doesn't matter what it lands on. And of course, in America, it's the second Sunday of the month. My mom used to work at a chicken plant here in Arkansas. And I don't mean in the offices, like hanging chickens while I'm up there in prison acting like a gangster. And she would work on Friday, get off of work, drive 12, 14 hours to Texas from Arkansas, get there in the morning on Saturday, see me for 4 hours, spend her hard-earned money on a hotel, see me for 4 hours on Sunday, and then drive back so she could make it to work on Monday. She did that every Mother's Day for those 10 years. And she would see me more than that because I'm her favorite. I'm the boy that she wanted to save that she just couldn't save, you know. And I remember telling my mom when I got through this program, I said, Mom, whatever you want me to do, all because there's a story where the gentleman tells his wife, I said, everything you want, all I want is the opportunity to do whatever you want, whenever you want. So I'm living with her and she knocks on the door. She goes, Mijo, I need you to cut the grass. You know what I say? It's too hot out there, Mom. Because I forget. That's why I go 3 meetings a week. That's why I have a sponsor that's got a sponsor. And that's why I take people through these beautiful steps, because I forget. Left to my own devices, I forget. If you're new to this program, please come. Keep coming back. Stay. Don't think too much and just do. This beautiful program is like working out. I can tell you I'm a member of a gym, and I've been a member of Platinum Fitness for 3 years. Ask me how many times I've gone in there. 2 to renew. That's it. You know, I got a trainer and all that. It's the same thing in pro. I can tell you where the meeting's at. I can tell you I have a sponsor. And I can complain. I can tell you how this doesn't work. But if I want to have those arms like those men do, I've got to do the work. And this is what this beautiful program is. With the help of people. And one thing I realized very early that helped me out a lot is I don't have to do this by myself. Never. Not in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love y'all. I'm sorry I take so long. I get a little bit nervous when it comes to this Zoom because I can't see y'all, you know. But, you know, this program works, man. And if this program works, I really appreciate y'all have given me the opportunity to come and tell you how God's worked in my life. I still sometimes have to pinch myself to make sure that this is not a dream and I'm going to wake up in that prison. But when I get like this, it's not that I haven't forgiven myself or that I still feel shame. It's that I'm in the presence of God's grace and I don't deserve it. But that doesn't mean I can't have it, you know. God's grace is I can't work for it. By doing this beautiful program, it automatically happens. And today I get to feel joy. I'm in a great marriage with great kids. The only thing missing is for these Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl this year, and I'd have a great year. You know, I love y'all. Thank you for allowing me to share my story, and please keep coming back. I love y'all. Thank you.